Brett Counts. I'm the Director of School Safety, Security, and Transportation for Sherman ISD.
Okay. And before you got into this position, what did you hold before?
Gosh, 24 years, teacher, coach, assistant principal, and building principal at many campuses. Multiple. Every
Okay.
campus in the, no, not every campus, but every level in the district. So,
Okay. And so, what I'm going to ask you questions on today is your experience with safety
okay.
and security. And I think what I'm going to do first is start with when you were a campus principal, things that you saw, things that you had to deal with, and then we'll work our way into your current position because
Okay.
now you see it as a whole district and not just as just what's happening on your campus. So talk to me about some of your experiences about, the first, when you first took on your campus, one of the campuses you were principal at. What was the first thing that you did?
So the first campus, well, the first campus I was ever building principal was Perrin Learning Center.
Okay.
So Perrin Learning Center is our facility for our kids that are on the self-paced learning. A lot smaller campus. So sometimes you think about the students that are there and you think there might be security issues, but it was to me, it was like the safest place I'd ever been just because of small numbers. Neighborhood brought about uh, some issues that made it more, but the students itself, it really wasn't. It really wasn't that much of an issue. So
Did you have an
say,
SRO on that campus?
it did not.
No.
So actually, they used to before I took when I was at the old location.
Mm-hmm.
They did, but they had PLC and DAEP. No, they didn't. Wait a minute. They that principal officed at the old Fred, which is Fred Douglass, which is used to be the DAP. But no, they did. They did. All they had there, they did PLC and DAP in the same building. So yes, he did, but it was mainly because of the DAP.
Because of
So
proximity?
Well, just because of the DAP students
Yeah.
and the students that you would get there and the issues that might
Right.
arise. And when they moved out to the
To make sure this is recording. Keep talking.
when they moved out to the other building,
Yeah. Okay.
he may have kept an SRO for a while. Then he was replaced, and that principal said he didn't need the SRO. And so when I got there, there wasn't an SRO, and I didn't add one. So no, that's a long answer for what you asked
No,
me.
no, you're good though.
But still,
Yeah.
but we didn't have one.
Okay.
And like I said, nothing. And and here's one good thing is in the new position. Sometimes I realize things I didn't do I should have done. So this is almost something you don't want to admit, but I don't know that we ever did a drill. We've never asked to do a drill. The principal before me didn't do a drill. But that's the only building that I've been in where it's like you didn't even do it. And I don't know if it was because kids came at so many different times or it was so small. I don't know.
Right.
But it was not a good thing.
So hindsight, you look back, you think, you know what, we probably
That's
should have.
terrible.
And,
Yeah.
what would that look like you said, because it's not, they don't just start the year and finish the year, they're coming in intermittently, or they're
Right.
graduating, or they're finishing early and so forth.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. But so you should have done them, but they would have just been, God, you may have had to do so many in one. So really what you do is just have your staff do classroom drills and talk about what you would do.
Mm-hmm.
But that was before we did lockdowns or anything like that. I mean, you had fire drills.
Right. That or tornado.
You did fire and
Yeah.
weather. That's all
Yeah.
you did. That's all you did. And
Yeah.
all the staff knew what to do, and they would talk to the students about what to do.
Mm-hmm.
But because of that setting, no one ever did it.
When you moved to
What
Dillingham,
if Jim doesn't now?
I don't know.
I think
Probably a good
ask him.
idea.
I think he does.
When you moved to Dillingham, obviously the campus was much bigger,
Right.
more students. The actual facilities were larger. So when you started there, what was the first thing you did?
Safety, security
Yes.
wise.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Make sure I know which. I made sure I knew which assistant principal that was going to be a facilitator of all things that were safety and security. and got a schedule for when we were going to do fire drills, when we were going to do tornado drills, weather drills. And again, even when I first started there, fire and weather were the only drills that we were doing when I first started. Oh, wait a minute. We would have been doing lockdown, lockout.
Okay.
But that was even, God, that was I don't even know if Sherman ISD had started. I'd never heard of SRP. I didn't know what it was.
Right.
Standard Response Protocol. Scott may have.
Yeah.
So I take that back. We were doing lockdown and lockout. Yeah, we were.
Okay.
But so we would have been doing lockdown, lockout, weather, and then a tornado. But you know, it was actually during that time that there were more events as far as school shootings and things go. There were a lot more, yeah. But the monitoring of our drills and stuff were not probably not what they should be, and that's just because Scott's director of maintenance and operations. He has so many things to do.
Right.
Besides that, and then the biggest issue for me was I didn't like the way we did all of our fire drills. We didn't have a way of we didn't really account for everyone when they got outside. But I waited and let them see. I wanted to see what they were doing. You guys do what you've always done, let me see it.
Right.
But we weren't accounting for kids when they got outside. I mean, we would walk the building and make sure everyone was out, but a nurse would go out with a cart. But there wasn't. Teachers were checking their kids, but then we didn't have any way to signal or show and to for the administration to say, yeah, everyone is clear, everyone is out of the building, other than us checking the building. So that was probably the first changes I made. And with the weather drills, as long as when I got there, as long as they got in the hallway and they covered up and did the things that they were supposed to do, that's all they were doing. But no one was taking accountability for how close are we to the glass, how far away from it from the glass. So I started to question those kinds of things. So I called Scott and asked, and he told me 30 feet from glass. So me, kind of OCD a little bit, so I went around the entire building and put red duct tape markers up on the walls, 30 feet away from every exterior window and exterior door.
That's good, though. You're able to give a visual so they didn't.
Right, because everybody's like, well, where's 30 feet? I said, well, I'll just mark it off for you.
Right. That's good. So when you moved from campus leadership and you moved into this position for district leadership, and so what experience other than campus experience did you have coming into being the director of safety and security?
Oh, yeah. I was a police officer for 3 years, but we automatically think that the police officer is going to know a lot about safety and security. He has, I think they have the right mindset. So I felt like I did.
Right.
But my experience working as a teacher or a coach and an assistant principal and then a building principal, to me, was way more valuable in learning what needed to be done for this position than a police officer was.
That makes sense.
Again, I think it's a great mindset, but what they do for safety and security, to me, is a lot different than what we do.
Yeah, particularly when you talk about an active shooter on campus, and you think about when the police come onto campus, they're not looking, honey, are you okay? They're trying to get to the shooter. So
that's right.
I see that mindset differently.
Yeah, it's a lot different. I mean, we are real quick to know that not only do we have to make that everybody has to be safe and the staff has to be safe, but we also know that, man, we are in the eyes of the community in such a way, and even planning. I'm digressing here a little bit, but with planning with safety and security, that's where, to me, it's like I've told Tyson, I've told Dr. Bennett that I would never want in the future when I leave for anyone to do this job that doesn't have campus experience, because if you haven't been there on the campus, you don't look at it the same way that the principal looks at it, and you don't always look at it with the kid in mind, along with the safety and the learning environment in mind, along with the safety. And so I think it's just me, and through my recent trainings and when I listen to other safety security directors from other schools and police officers that are at those trainings, sometimes I listen to them and I just think, boy, if you could only walk a mile in her shoes or my shoes, you would approach that so differently.
Yeah.
So.
No, and that's good. I mean, that's good that you were able to come at it from two different directions. Not very many people have ever been sitting in a seat as a principal and have had worn a badge, you know,
right.
of some sort. So, and I know that with my experience, when you are working with police officers, they don't have that experience or the knowledge of we have to think about this, this, and this when they're on campus, especially when we're going in and bringing in a new SRO and we're trying to get them related to what, you know, and to how we run a campus and what that looks like. There's a different softness to that and what that looks like.
Yeah, exactly. So that was one of the first things that I saw, and then I even actually contacted the former director of safety at Region 10 and said that I felt like this was an area that needed to be addressed, and that was whenever you went to like the summer Texas, Texas School Safety Center, summer.
Yep, I got you.
Yeah,
the one in San Marcos.
Big training thing. Yeah, but
yes.
It used to be.
Sounds like.
It used to be in Corpus Christi. All right, and you could just you're in these meetings, and that training used to be just for police officers. It was just SROs, and that was back. And when it began, you're talking about SROs that were really just contracting even daily, not necessarily working full time for the
that makes sense.
That's just the beginning of it. So the training was originally done for all of them, and as the years went by, more and more school administrators would start to come into that, and then the whole outlook and training and methods and protocols and practices, they started to change a little bit. But even when I went the first time 3 years ago, the first thing I noticed was, not always and not with everyone, but there was this little bit of underlying animosity between a lot of these SROs and the school administrators. There were a certain number of SROs that really, I don't know a better way to put it, they were offended by us. Some of them act like they didn't even want us there. And when you would be in a session, a training session, sometimes they would really voice that. And they were always, and they were bashing us pretty good. And of course, most of the administrators in there were pretty, the school administrators were, a little more passive than that. They weren't really responding. But me, kind of coming from both, I finally spoke up. And because a lot of them had them, but I'll also give you this, they were from districts that didn't have a good working relationship with their local police department. We fortunately did.
Right.
So they had some bad experiences between their local schools and their police departments. But they were still in, a lot of their mindset was that you guys just need to get out of our way and let us do our thing. Now again, this is a small percentage,
right,
but it's a big enough percentage that it's still creating some problems that we have to get past. And when I finally spoke up, I was like, that is never going to happen. That's just absolutely not going to work, because one, that principal is in charge of that building, not you. So you can't do anything in his or her building, or you shouldn't, that they're not approving of or they wouldn't agree with. And then at the same time, and then the superintendent of that school,
Right.
he's in charge of that principal,
Mm-hmm.
and he's in charge of that whole district. So we absolutely should not get out of your way and let you just do your thing. You really need to be coming to us and say, how do we make what we do work with what y'all need to do? Because you got to have that. You've got to have that soft, inviting, community feel, loving environment for children, and so that your community is comfortable and you still have to be safe at the same time, and you have to work together. You guys have to quit fighting amongst each other, and y'all have to figure out a way. But it doesn't need to be us getting out of your way and letting you do your thing. It needs to be us working together and you wanting to know how you can keep us safe, enforce the law, but still allow and keep this environment. And that's the way it is in most places. And I think it's always getting better. But even today, well, a little over a year ago, when I still went to those things before COVID, you could still see some of that. So.
Well, and I've noticed it too since I've been in Sherman. Been here 3 years. And you can even see it within the ranks of the police officers. So when we have our SRO in a meeting or if we're on the site because there was a crash or something, you can see that they're even treated differently from their own police department, from their own peers.
They've got a different perspective because they've been working with you for a while, and they've started to understand that. Yeah, I agree.
So,
absolutely.
And then there's some times that over my years of being on campus administration, that when our SRO is not on campus, who has become part of a culture, and they understand that it's all about building relationships with students and with teachers and with parents and administration, when we have a sub police officer come on campus, you know if someone's got the it factor or if they don't have it. You know if they're not there, they're just there to get the paycheck or not. So it takes the right person to be a police officer on a campus.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that we talked about often in a lot of my early trainings when I came into this position. Even our SRO roundtables that we do, where you take your SROs with them. I used to take Yan, of course. Now it's all virtual because of COVID. But yeah, and even at the School Safety Center conference, there's that word I was looking for. Conference. How easy was that? Yeah, even there, the officers that have been doing it for a while and that have good relationships and like their schools and their principals, they have a different mindset than, because there are tons of officers there that aren't SROs because they still get their TCO credits and things like that.
Right.
And it's a very different mindset. And even those guys will tell you not every officer can do this job. Not every, it takes the right officer to be an SRO. Mm-hmm. But there are officers out there that look at the SRO job as not real police work, just police jobs. Again, it's a small.
Depends on where you're at.
It's a small number, and I get it. And you're right. It is a different job, but it is real police work, but for a different community. It's not. They're not adults. They're children, and I get it. They may be 17 or 18, and it may be different on the street, but we're a learning institution, learning environment first. And we're going to make it as safe as we can from that. And if I want to do my job as an SRO, I have to start to look a little bit like an educator. I have to start to act a little bit like an educator, or I won't be able to do my job effectively. So yeah, you still see that some.
Let's start talking about your when you moved off the campus and now you're in the position, and we always talk about that, with you in the position you're currently in right now. So in your role, overseeing all of safety and security for the district, what are some areas that when you came in you saw that needed to be addressed or haven't been addressed yet at that time?
Yeah. So, see if I can try to be fairly succinct here. The first thing right off the bat was uh, monitoring what we were doing.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have any system for truly monitoring. I mean, administrators fill out a form that said they did these drills,
Mm-hmm.
and then they turned them in, and they turned them in at the end of the year. But everybody's drills were late all the time, or they didn't get done. That was when we were doing one fire drill per month,
Right.
and you'd find out towards the end of the year that someone didn't get their fire drill in. And I get it, that does happen, but you plan it. If you plan it at the right time, say for January, and if you plan it for the middle of January, and then if you miss it, well, you still got a couple of weeks to get it in. But if you put it in at the end of January and you don't get it,
Right.
and then you miss January, and they think, well, January's done. But what I started asking them to do, no, don't look at it that way, because what's important is that, bottom line, we're supposed to do 10 fire drills a year. So if you put it at the last week of January and you didn't get it, then do it the first week of February, but then do 2 February. At least that way, when you send that record into the state, it still shows this was a week late. It happened in February, but hey, we're still on the ball. We still did 10. And there just wasn't, we needed a system to monitor and manage those, which we do not have. We now have that with Raptor.
Right.
And so, and to me, monitoring those drills is not a gotcha, you didn't get them. It's just a keep reminding you. And I'm going to show you in compliance if you get it in and you get it done. So it's not, ooh, y'all didn't do it. It's like, hey, you haven't done this, get it done. But if I didn't have that to look at, that had my little green and red dots all over the screen,
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't know that y'all didn't have a drill done. I wouldn't know that Ponder didn't have a drill done.
Right.
But now I know that they don't, and so I can always remind them and to get that in there.
Well, I think it's great for checks and balances, and
Yeah.
you know, knowing with you have been running campuses, campus principal, things happen, and if you don't put it on the calendar, it's not going to get done.
That's right.
And you know, you have to adjust.
And if you don't monitor it, people will.
Exactly.
We're human. We're like, nah, I didn't get it. That's all right. I'll do it next month. I mean, we'll do that,
Right.
including myself,
Yeah.
unless someone monitors me. So
That's funny.
next Tyson's he's gonna have a Raptor management system to monitor the monitor.
To monitor the monitor to make sure that we're monitoring. Okay.
Yeah.
So, what else have you implemented that you have seen that needed some more structure and so forth to keep the campuses safe?
One, I think we increased our relationships a lot with all of our local responders,
Mm-hmm.
and we talk to them more often. They come in our schools and they do active shooter drills. Sherman PD is going to do some next, in a few weeks at the old high school.
Oh, perfect. Have at
because
it.
no one's
No
there.
one's there.
But then the emergency response teams, they do those too. So we immediately started doing those. And when I first got here, we were dabbling with standard response protocol,
Uh-huh.
and we were calling it standard response protocol, but we were only doing parts. We hadn't gone the full blown with standard response protocol. So, just like it says, it's a protocol for your standard response, and we didn't have that. We were kind of unsure what to do,
Right.
and but now it's out there, and I feel like everybody absolutely should know what to do. And now I'm talking about on your standard response
Mm-hmm.
drills. If you don't, you're either brand new or you haven't been paying attention because it's there. So I thought that was important to get that completely into play. And then, to me, one of the biggest things, if you want to talk about something that keeps me up at night, is like, to me, safety and security planning is like, God, it's one of the most important things you can do, but yet you may never use it, so it's hard to keep everybody interested in it.
Mm-hmm.
When they come to a training and you talk about it and they see it, it's like, God, that's so important. but you've got so many other things going on your campus. It's easy to walk away, and it suddenly starts to fade, and it becomes less important, and so it's tough to keep reminding of that, and it's tough to uh, keep everybody on their toes. So to me, I want every campus to have. Uh, I don't need to be the. I mean, I'm the safety security leader for the district, but I want every campus to have a safety security leader for the campus, because they're the ones that's going to make happen on your campus what really needs to happen. Because I'm looking at it from over here.
Right.
They are there every day with the staff to see if the staff's doing what they need to do. And then the one thing that I started talking about, and then chase the squirrel again, was the if you ever do have a serious event, whether it's weather or a violent intruder of some sort, and if you haven't planned and you haven't drilled and you haven't practiced, it is going to show. And
that's what keeps me up at night too.
Yeah, and we're going to be scrutinized heavily. We are anyway. But at least with your weather and your fire, and everybody wants the child, and everybody wants to step in and take over. And if you're not prepared for that, it's a mess, and kids get lost and they're not accounted for. But yet it's the one thing that there's almost no way to practice it. There's not a way to practice it that's very real. Like, you can watch videos, you can do tabletop exercises. So we do have a reunification team, and we need to revisit it, because I send it out to everybody and we talk about it, but it's one of those.
If you don't practice it, you're not going to remember it.
Right, you're not going to remember it, but
Right.
there's just not a good way to practice it. And there's always something that sets you back every time you think you're ready to practice it, or do it. So yeah, that scares me, because it's. But I still think there are so many schools that don't even have. I could name them right now. Do you have a reunification team? And they say what? And they don't even know what I'm talking about. At least we have one.
Yeah.
It's names on paper, at least, and people have seen their names on the paper, and they know what their role is. And but it's hard to practice that role.
Right. Right.
But that's why I have 10 radios there, because that's part of it. They stay charged, but right now there's one on her desk and one on mine. We do those every day so that we can hear y'all if you call for us.
Oh, that's good.
So we have a plan that if we have reunification, that's what those bags are for, with their radios and their cards and everything that help you with reunification. And Scott knows what his role is, and everybody here used to know what their role was, but it doesn't. It's time to revisit. You got to revisit every time. But again, COVID really threw a kink in that. And then we descend upon your campus, and we're your reunification team, or we go to a reunification location other than your campus. We do it. But each campus needs their own reunification team too, for a much smaller event where we would just be in your way. It would be overkill. But if it was a large event that had a lot of trauma involved, and then your staff's going to be busy dealing with that, and y'all need us to come in force and greet your parents and ask who their student is, and put them together with their student and send them on their way. Also, though, what we've added to that is with Raptor that we use to manage the drills, and Travis has done this training. I think he did it separately from us. I think he had to go back and watch the video, because I can't remember. He might have been absent on the first training. But we have an app that also helps you with your reunification. Okay. So with your app on your phone, but we're going to have to practice this. So
especially with the new campus. If
right, we haven't practiced it with the campus yet, but one of them is because we chose just one campus, and that was not just us, but the people that are training us. Start with one. Let's do these events. Let's do this accountability.
Right.
And we're going to do that with Pioneer, but we keep having things set us back. Like the first time we were going to do it, Amy was out on quarantine and things were hectic, so we didn't do it. And then he was getting ready to do it again, and then there was a technical issue. None of his staff, something they weren't able to enter or whatever. And then shortly after that, we're starting to plan it again, and then we had our recent Ice-mageddon. So,
Yeah.
and so we'll eventually get there. So all the reunification that you do that has the cards, and you have to have people show up. And we got our laptops, so we can put it in the computer and make sure that you are the guardian for this child, and we can reunite your child with you. You can do so much of it from the app, and from the app you can also account for every child that's in the building because they're automatically uploaded into the Raptor system. So if we pulled up the Raptor app on your campus and with your staff, all of your students would be there. So you can take roll of the entire campus. So if I'm Mr. Counts and I'm in my algebra class, and we're in the middle of a lockdown, and Johnny's not in my class, I will check Johnny off as being absent. But if you grab Johnny out of the hallway right as it all started and put him in your class, you'll see that I haven't accounted for Johnny Jones, but you can say, I have Johnny Jones, and now we can account for Johnny.
Somewhere.
We know he's somewhere.
Okay.
So,
oh, that's great.
But we still have work to do on that, and we've got to be able to practice it. And we've practiced it with a fake campus, which is part of your training.
Right.
But we haven't even gotten around to our first campus yet because things keep setting us back. So, but it's coming. And then obviously you guys will be able to do it too. At this point, you're certainly going to need some more training, and then your whole staff will download that app. I believe Travis probably still has it, but I can't remember if he was able to attend the training that day or if he had to go back and rewatch it. But
So
we can do it all over again.
We'll need to work on, I guess at the end of the year to get us going over the summertime and ready for August.
Yes.
Something to that effect. I don't know what time.
Yeah, and we'll, but even still, we don't want to do, and then once we do it with Pioneer and we feel good with it and it's successful, then we need to let every campus do it. But all the APs that were able to attend the training, they did a mock session of it, so they have an idea, but they're going to have to revisit it. But that's where I say you got to have the campus leader, because 13 campuses, we'll have 14. Next year, I would never be able to keep up with that and make sure everybody's doing it to the extent they need. They just actually need to practice it and drill it, and they have to know to do that.
Right.
I've got to always ask them, have you done it? Please, when's the last time y'all practiced with your app? Can you still do it? Would you know what to do in a reunification? But they have to actually, do it. Somebody has got to step up and say, I'm going to be the person on this campus to make sure that we're doing all that. So
makes sense.
Travis seems eager to do it, by the way. So.
Oh yeah.
But he was so new.
Yeah.
He was so new. Yeah. That's why we chose Pioneer, because Greg takes a big interest in it. He seems to.
Yeah.
And so that's why I asked him to do it. Travis was
great.
way too new to ask him. We're too big too. We don't want to start there. So.
Work your way to us.
Yeah, work our way to y'all.
So we're going to talk a little bit now about the new campus. And so we are on a 540,000 square foot campus. Brand new facilities. We've left our old campus. We're now on a new one. Unfortunately, we moved on to our campus before it was completely finished. So things that bother me, and I'm going to tell you what I feel, and I want to hear from your side, is that we're on that campus, and we are not completely secure.
You're not.
We could have at any time have anybody from the street walk in, and we wouldn't have any way to communicate with the whole campus at the same time to go to lockdown.
Yeah.
We have no way of. We're just now able to start locking doors, but we have so many contractors on campus. that the doors are being propped, but there's not
Yes.
enough. We only have one SRO and no security guards. So I'm going to put that back on you right now to explain to me, how do you feel? What, I mean, I know this is keeping you up at night. You know the worst case scenario.
Yeah, it does worry me. It does keep me up at night, but there's not a lot I can do other than offer my help and support and try to push everything that I can to get it done more quickly. But that's hard to do when you've got construction that's not even finished. It's hard to think about. You got classrooms that can't even cover windows, and it's hard to get someone really focused on, let's get that done right now, because we haven't even finished this wing or this hallway. My perspective, though, it's like, to me, that's what I do first.
Right.
Because I've got students in the building, so I have to get this done. Wherever we're going to get the money, and whoever you want focused on it, I'll do it. Let's start getting those things, and when we do that, because we have to have. I mean, we can fire drill.
Right.
We've got storm shelters. We can do that, but the one thing we can't do is lock down or lock out right now. And there's so many people coming in and out, and we even have security vestibules that aren't ready, and we have badge scanners that aren't ready. So, yeah, it worries me.
Yeah, it's
It
nerve-wracking.
worries me. It is. Yeah, but I would, and I think there was even things. Some people can't see this video.
It's just a professor. Hello, professor. We're okay.
Yeah, I mean, there are even things that, to me, it's like somewhere in the design, we have a couple of classrooms. It's like we put these windows back here that see into the hallway, and no one ever said, well, we need to put one of those sliding boards there. Whereas, I'm not saying I needed to be every meeting, but if I had been there, I would have been the first one going, whoa, wait a minute, you got to have a sliding board there. You can't put that window there. Instructionally, you want that window there because it's that window that looks out into the
collaboration hall.
Yes.
Yeah, which we
So
don't
you
really know
want
why it's there, but yeah.
Yeah, so
Seems odd.
well, it's the ones that are on the end, like where Reed Whiteman is.
Yeah.
And then
There's no protection.
He's third floor, and then the 2 floors below him, and it's only on that one end. Because the
So
other
4 of them. They're going to be on the ends.
Yeah. And so they put the window so he can see in the collaboration hall just like the other teachers can, but there's no way to cover that. So in a lockdown, he can't cover that. And that was it. So one of the first times I toured the building, it's one of the first things I saw. And I immediately started talking about it. And I could tell I was getting on one of the guys' nerves of like, why does this not have a board? He's like, well, it's not in the plan. It's not in the plan. I'm looking at Tyson. And I'm like, why is this not a board? We can't do this. And it's like, well, I don't know if we can do it now. It's like, we got to do it right now. But I can, it's just overwhelming, but it's probably overwhelming for everybody that's in charge too and trying to get everything done. But if at some point, if I'd have walked through earlier and
But
been
in
going
to address it.
Yeah, I feel like we could have addressed it a lot earlier. Now we're trying to address it, but we already have people in the building. And then part of it was the construction company. You have blinds ready to go for some of these, but you don't for others. And then you've got even you've got a couple of places. It's like the only place to hide is in the storage room, but we can't all fit there.
Right.
So I could say way too much.
I know.
About it.
It's
It
okay.
bothers
You're
me
good.
a lot.
You're good. We're living in it, so it is.
Yeah.
So talk about some of the neat things that you were able to put into this new facility that we don't have on other campuses for security.
Yeah.
For safety.
Yeah. You might actually have to help
yeah.
me with some of these because a lot of it was, like I said, I wasn't in a lot of the planning, but I think I'm aware of most of it. So, like I always say, and like I said earlier, is, we're a school first. We're a learning environment first. So, to me, you create this awesome, great learning environment for your students and your staff, and this great school for your community and everyone. And when you decide what is the best for that, now let's take it and make it as safe as we can without taking away from learning environment instruction. Because if you overkill, then you will take away from that. If you were afraid to have more windows, then you wouldn't have your collaboration halls, you know, and you wouldn't have things like that. But we have only 2 main entry points, our security vegetables, and now not only do you have just the one entry vestibule, then at least in the front one, and then you have to take another entrance into just an office. So you have to go through 2 locations before you actually get into the building, before you actually let into the building. So that makes a difference. We have things that are so much more than what's required or what other schools even have. An example would be bleed stations. You're required to have 2 bleed stations in that entire school, as big as it is. That's all you're required, because all the legislation says is that you have to have bleed stations. So only way it's defined. So 2 would be bleed stations, and but that's just not enough.
Right.
So you don't do that. So we have 6 bleed stations spread around the campus that are accessible from several different points. But then not only that, you have bleed stations in a kit spread among 20 or 25 of your teachers as well. That's one thing I'm really proud of, is because also when I went to that School Safety Center conference my first time, and I was looking at the different trainings. I'm digressing again.
Oh, you're fine.
Let's
all come back together.
Yeah. So, you know, and I'm picking out the sessions that I'm going to go to, and I kept stop the bleed. What is that? And I just kept ignoring it, and I was going to all these other things. And we get around to the last day, and I hear somebody talking there. Boy, that stop the bleed was awesome. I got to go there. So I'm like, I want to go stop the bleed.
Yeah.
So I went to stop the bleed, and I walked out of stop the bleed going, oh my gosh, we got to stop the bleed. We got to stop the bleed quickly.
Yeah.
And because I realized what it was, and it's you know, so many deaths occur because of a major artery that's been severed, whether it's from a shooter or from glass from a tornado or whatever it was, or an accident in the welding shop. And if you can stop them from bleeding, you can save a life, and that's what it's all about. But we got to have these kits everywhere. So I started checking around and asking people, and they said, yeah, some of our staff have done that. And I'm like, that's not enough. We got to have more. And like, yeah, we have a couple of people trained. We have a couple of kids. I said, a couple of kids. If I'm bleeding back in the whatchamacallit shop and your kid's up at the nurse's office, I'm going to be dead by the time you get there.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, this is one of those things that it's worth the overkill for. You may never need it, but the time you needed it and somebody died because you couldn't help them, whoever wants to be in that case. So we trained like 150 staff members throughout the district, and we bought 150, 200 kits, and we spread them all around the district. And that was before the state even required anything. I was just like, we got to have this. And then a year later, the state starts asking me to do less than what I've already done. So they want me to put 2 little canisters on the wall and put a kit in them, and they were requiring me to do that, but yet I'm like,
it's not enough.
Yeah, but I've got 20 of them already around here. That's right. You still got to hang 2 of them on the wall. And I'm like, okay, I will.
Yeah.
But I won't. I'm going to hang 6 of them on the wall, you know, and I'm still going to have those others. So, so that was one of those things I always talked about. But even when you talk about it, people are like, yeah. And I looked at Tyson and said, Tyson, this is really cool. I said, I just saw this. We got to have these. He's like, okay. And people still didn't think much about it until they went through the training. And then when they went through the training, they were like, I was thinking I didn't want to come here. I didn't know why you wanted to do this. but they say, and then they left the training saying, tell me where I can get these so I can put these in my home and so I can put one in my car. So, so as simple as it sounds, that was one that before the state even put it out there, we had done so much more. Yeah, and way ahead of it. And then and even now, so evac chairs. I remember last year you asked me about an evac chair, and I asked people, yeah, we have an evac chair. I said, you have an evac chair? You have one? Yeah, we have one. Somebody might have had two, and I'm going, okay, but if the building's on fire and I'm back here, and I need you to get me down those stairs, and your chair is up there.
You're going to say, time out, hold on, let me go get it. Yeah.
So I immediately thought, this is just like the bleed kits. This really ought to be overkill. And so when we were meeting and we were talking about those evac chairs, I know I asked, but I was so glad that you said you wanted one in every stairwell, because that's what I wanted to do, but I didn't know if y'all would want them, or I didn't know if we would want to spend that kind of money. And so we have an evacuation chair in your new building at every possible location where someone would need to get downstairs. So we have 6, 12, we have 15 chairs. Yeah, there's not a location where someone someone handicapped or someone injured that needed to get down that we couldn't get them down. All 15 may never come off the rack, but if we need them to come off the rack.
Yep.
And then the same for the AEDs. Most campuses have one AED, maybe two AEDs. And then I was talking to Scott. I said, why? I said, it's kind of like that bleed kit. I said, we feel like the bleed kits, we're wanting to spread those around so that it's fairly easy access from everywhere. I said, let's put 6, and he agreed immediately. Yeah, let's put 6.
Yeah.
So we did the same. So we put those and the bleed stations and on the same locations. And then of course we have the tornado shelter. That's something that we've never had before. The special ed wing of something that I liked there was that Chris Whitman was telling me that he could program that thing. You can program it a certain way that not only do you have to scan to get in the door, you have to scan to get out of the door.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Well, it may be a pain for your teachers, but guess what can't happen? The special ed kid can't go running out the door.
Oh, that's great.
So what I told him was, I said, I'm going to say absolutely that's the way we want it, but talk to Jennifer first because it's her campus. I said, but I bet you money that's what she's going to want. Yeah, and then I don't even know how many pull stations. There are over 300 cameras. There are multiple fire pull stations everywhere. Anything you can think of I'm leaving out?
No, I think that when we finally finish this project and the campus is finished and everything is the way it needs to be, it is going to be one that you will have other districts coming in to take a look at.
I think they would too.
Yeah.
With everything that's there, but
I don't, we use the word overkill, right? Because it's not the norm to put as much as we put on the campus. But I think eventually we'll find another word for that. I think.
Yeah, that's just me. I
do the same thing.
I'd rather it be overkill, but really it's not overkill. It's really what's needed. It's what's needed to be the safest.
Right.
So.
And we all know that just like we can plan for a lockdown for an active shooter, but you really can't plan what happens after because it never happens twice the same way.
That's right.
Such as a fire or an accident on a. So you can never. I think it's brilliant that you were able to back that and be able to get so much of those extra security pieces on our campus to help. That makes me feel safer as a campus principal, knowing that we have these things in place.
Yeah, I tell you, and you can't get those things if you don't have the support from front office too, and you don't have the funds that are available.
It's like buying insurance, and we've got a really big plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, every time somebody says, "Well, I don't know if we'll be able to get that," I say, "I don't know. I'm pretty tight with the guy in the money drawer."
Yeah.
So let's see
It's
what,
true.
see what
Yeah.
I can do.
Yeah.
And
And safety should always come first. So.
yeah, it should. Like it said,
Yep.
even though we may never take one of those bleed kits out,
Right.
but I tell you what, if we have a major incident and we've got just 5 injuries scattered around the building, there is a bleed control kit that is close by and very likely in a teacher's hands because they have it in their classroom,
Right.
or there's a station close by.
And
So,
you and I just spoke yesterday about having the students trained on using the bleed kits. And I actually met with the student leadership this morning and rolled that out to them. They're very excited about it. So I told them when we get back from spring break that we'll set a meeting up and they'll figure out which ones will be the trainers of the trainers on the student's perspective, and then we'll start getting those.
yeah,
done.
and now you have 2,000 people in one building
Mm-hmm.
that are capable of applying a tourniquet or a chest seal.
Yeah.
Well, that would be if everyone got trained, but still, that's a lot of people.
Right.
Yeah, it makes you feel a little safer.
I think it's great. All of our students, by the time they graduate, have to be certified in CPR. And I don't see why that can't happen in the future. That we eventually get them trained.
Yeah, they may increase that right now.
Yeah.
Right now, you have to offer the bleed station training. Mm-hmm. It may become in a year or two. It may be they have to have it.
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
One of the things we haven't talked about that I think has made a huge difference in safety and security for all of us is just the fact that we do talk about it all the time and that we do train on it all the time, and we're addressing the mental health side of it.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
good point.
Yeah, so events that involve dangerous people have gone down, and they're going to continue to go down because, to me, if I'm an evil person and I'm wanting to do some harm, or I'm just I'm a troubled student, but yet I'm about to cause harm. There are so many things that are going on that bring bring you to my attention sooner, like threat assessment teams. The fact that we're talking about threat assessment teams. So when you hear of a threat, no matter how small that is, we're addressing it. We're going right to the kid, and we're talking to the kid, and we're interviewing and talking to other kids and the kids' parents. So we're intercepting the kid as a state, as a nation, not just Sherman ISD, in the earlier stages before they get to here. And then for the kid that was just, or the kid or the person that was just mean or evil and wanted to do harm because of some vendetta, now that person, they're a little more afraid to act because we talk about it, we know what you do, we're putting it out there, we've got more SROs, and we've got more SROs with weapons that match your weapons that you would bring.
Right.
And so I think that's been.
I think that's good that you brought that up. The mental health side of that.
It's the biggest part
Mm-hmm.
to me.
Yeah.
Because, well, for that side of it, for the active shooter or the violent intruder, whatever you want to call them, out of all the school shootings, all but one that I know of was a student. There was one where a guy walked in off the street, and I think there's been one where maybe a spouse has come in and shot a spouse or something.
Right.
But the main ones and the majority of them is a troubled student. So, yeah, if you don't approach that side of it, the rest is going to matter.
I think when you think about all of this, you wrap this all up together. A lot of what we spoke about today was reactive. And then a lot of the other part of what we just finished talking about was preventative.
Right.
So, elaborate a little bit more on that.
Yeah, well, all your drills, planning, and your threat assessment teams, Uh, all of that is proactive. Your security vestibules are proactive. Everything that you build into your campus to make it safe is proactive. But you still got to drill the reactive part, because as proactive as you want to be, you can it can still happen. In addition to the mental health, too, another thing that I talked about a lot when I first came into this job, and when I was going through all the training that made me get really excited about safety and security for schools, was that I say bells and whistles. You can have all the bells and whistles you want, which means you can have all the locks on your doors and the scanners on your doors, and you can have all the cameras and security vestibules. You can have and you can have the glass, the bulletproof glass, or the film on the glass that's bulletproof. And you can drill and you can practice on all those things. But the most important element before you spend money, so everybody, there I go, chase that squirrel. My thoughts are just turning like this all the time. Is, where are you going to spend your money? How many, do the bells and whistles, do some of them. You've got to have some things in place. But the most important thing you can have are people with the right mindset. And so that comes from conversations and planning and training and believing that it could happen, and you got to be ready for it. So you change that mindset about the safety and security and get everybody thinking about it, and spend your money there, and now decide where you're going to spend money on the physical building. So, because people are always approaching me about, ooh, here's the latest, greatest product. Here's this. And, and sometimes Tyson sends them to me, or Dr. Hicks will send them to me, and what do you think about this? And oftentimes it's nice, but it's too much. We should only do so much and do it well, and we're okay. Because there's always going to be a new product, and you occasionally decide, yep, we need that. It's time to add that. Right. But if you try to do too much, you can't train everybody on it, and it becomes overwhelming. And so you just got to try to find balance. But what you've got to have are the meetings and talking about safety, and do the drills and change the mindset. And now, what can I buy that helps us too, that doesn't destroy our learning environment?
Right. So, right. That's like you can buy all the extra ancillaries, for classrooms that helps out with the curriculum and so forth. But if you don't understand your TEKs, those pieces aren't going to mean anything. So
right.
Yeah.
And it's easy for teachers and even some administrative staff to get kind of complacent about drills and not drill seriously. But it's frustrating to me, and I know it is to you, when they do that, because they think, oh my gosh, here's fire drill. Let's do the fire drill. Let's do the lockdown drill. I know we're supposed to be quiet over here and practice this, but nobody's going to hear us, so we're going to keep teaching during this drill, when you need them to really practice it the right way.
I remember the first time when I first got here, and I explained my expectations for what a fire drill would look like. Let me come back on that. First, I did where I watched a fire drill without me having any interaction, and so I could see, I could go back. Yep. And so they were just walking out. Now, I don't want them to run, but I'm used to us timing. We need to be out in a certain time.
Have a sense of urgency.
Exactly. So it had to go back and actually reteach that. What were my expectations? And really, it's my expectations, because it should become your expectations.
Right. That
the drills are just as if you're smelling smoke or you see fire, we need to get out as calmly and as quickly as we would go. So I was able to come back and tell them, hey, you guys, we did successful. We did great. We were out, and it took us 4 minutes and 3 seconds. Instead of last time we were 4 minutes and, or whatever it was.
Right.
So I think that's big, to be able to come back and show those expectations, and making sure that the teachers understand it. Because if not, it's just another check mark. Oh, fire drill.
Right.
Let's just get out. Lockdown. Okay.
Oh yeah, I won't say when and where and who the principal was. I won't say that, but I can remember years as an assistant principal when the fire drill, school got out at 3, fire drill was at 2:55.
And that was more convenience than it appeared to be an inconvenience for.
Right. So really, all
others.
your practicing was getting out the door.
Yeah.
And your teachers making sure they went out the door they were supposed to. But that really,
With their backpacks and their car keys because it was time to go.
because that was easier, and then the kids just don't come back in.
Right.
Go home.
Right.
But really, even with the high school kids, though, it's just you really shouldn't. You shouldn't do it then. You should do it at different times of the day, but not where they walk out of the building and now just go home.
Right.
Because they should be lined up, and they should be taking roll, and you should have whatever system you're going to have with the red, green cards to show that all's counted for. Whatever you're going to do,
Mm-hmm.
you should always do that. But it's hard as even as a principal or even from here to get everybody to always practice drills seriously.
Yeah.
But it's easier if the principal demands it too. And